Knock at the Cabin is written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan and stars Dave Bautista, uh, Jonathan Groff, Ben Aldridge, and among others. And in this story, it deals with a family that arrive at a cabin in the woods. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with the Cabin in the Woods movie, but that would be kind of a cool twist. Um, and essentially, it deals with a group of four people that come to the cabin, that are all led by Dave Bautista, and Dave Bautista is trying to warn them of an apocalypse happening, and he essentially has to have the family try to make a sacrifice of one of their own. And if you've seen from the trailers, it essentially is the bare basics of the plot. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, I've been an avid fan of M. Night Shyamalan for a lot of his movies. Well, mostly in the past when he first started with a lot of his movies, like Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, and all that. And there was always a time when M. Night Shyamalan did have a series of hit and miss movies that I wasn't too fond of, or were just flat out off for a while, including like when he did The Village. I didn't see Late in the Water, but I heard that one was bad. And then you also had Last Airbender, which to me still holds as probably the worst. And then you also have After Earth, and then when he came back with the movies like The Visit, it got me really seeing a lot of the old Shyamalan that I missed the most when it came to making great films again. While the movie wasn't great, I still really enjoyed the movie pretty well because it did have some issues that kind of held it back quite a bit. But I still thought it was a good return to form. And then with Split, that really showcased that he really got his chance to really shine again, and also trying to round out a trilogy of Unbreakable. And while Glass had some things that really held it back from being great, I still did like Glass, and I just wish that it could have been a lot better. But I still think that there was still great Shyamalan in there that really kept it going. And then afterwards, it seems like he's been going back to more like lower scale type of movies again, like he used to do. And a couple years ago when he did Old, it got me interested upon seeing that film, but I did kind of find myself kind of in the middle with that one because it felt like one of those movies that was really just kind of middle of the road, where it had some really good things for it, but it became so basic with him pretty much trying to tell the story and stuff when it came to the end, and it had a lot of stuff that I felt could have had a bigger twist. And it also had some other pretty awful things that kind of held it back from being great, like some of the dialogue and all that. And so that was definitely one that I wasn't really the biggest fan of, but I never did a review of it. But it's definitely one of the middle of the road movies. And with this one, it got me really interested because it seemed like, he was going to more of a like apocalyptic type of movie where, you have like these four people that have to essentially make this family essentially, try to do something in this by sacrificing another in order to save the world. And so the stakes were pretty high from the get-go. If what I also heard, this movie was based on a book, and from what I heard with it was that Shyamalan changed things from the book, especially toward the ending of it, to make it for the better. And after upon seeing the film, I can honestly say that I thought the movie was pretty solid, but it's definitely not one of I don't think it's nearly as great as his other films. But I will say I thought it was still pretty good. And so, to get my pros out of the way, I thought Dave Bautista, really carries this movie. I thought he was fantastic. He's definitely a lot more reserved, the most like in this, that I've seen him in any other film. It definitely reminds me a lot of his character from Blade Runner 2049, where he's a lot more quieter, where he's a lot more subdued, and he has a lot of scenes where he's really just trying to be a nice guy, and he's really not there to try to hurt anyone. He just wants to try to do what's right, because the people that he's with, they don't even want to be there either, and they're trying to basically save the world and stuff. And him having to talk to this family and try to be, and even at the beginning of the film when he's trying to be friends with the little girl and stuff, I thought it was really not only very genuine, but I really felt for his character and the little girl. And then the same thing can be said with the couple. I thought that what's his name? I thought Ben Aldridge and Jonathan Groff, I thought, were fantastic in this, and I really did feel their chemistry, the way it played along and stuff, and I thought it was the way the movie plays along with their having to protect their family and everything. I thought was not only very intenseful at times, but I thought they really did a great job in their own right, and so they were fantastic. And then the rest, it was also really great to see what's his name who played Ron Weasley, Rupert Grint, in a movie in a while. I haven't seen him anything since since Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. So it was great seeing him and branch out into horror, much like what Daniel Radcliffe did. So I thought he was great in this as well. And the way that the movie is shot, too, is another pro because it really has, like, really outstanding cinematography in this, especially where it's set in the woods and stuff. And a lot of the typical camera angles that you see with Shyamalan, where he's got characters looking directly at the camera and stuff, was really well timed. And the way that the movie builds along, where you're not really too sure if the people there are really, telling the truth, or if they're really just kind of going crazy and stuff. That I think really helped it with the way the movie played out with its storyline. And so I really liked how the movie went along with, seeing where we do see images of what happened. We see news reports of stuff that is supposedly happening stuff, but you're still questioning whether or not the thing is real or anything. And I won't go into spoilers, but pretty much the way the movie does play along, it does do some nice things that, while it can be predictable how it plays out, I still thought it still kept me engaged. Now, if I do have to get into some cons, I will have to say that what does kind of hold the movie from being great is that it is very predictable as it goes along after a while, because I'm not going to spoil anything, but this one I think probably could have had a better ending. Now, what I heard was that they did change things that were from the book that it's based on, but it felt like it did miss that kind of M. Night Shyamalan touch like you see in other films, because the way it plays it out in the ending, I think it could have been done a lot better. I'll leave it there because that's a huge thing I can't discuss with. But the other thing I will say that holds it back is there's some certain flashbacks that they show in the film that do feel like the movie's kind of padded out, and there are some that work, but then there's other scenes that you could have either trimmed out or cut entirely because they didn't really feel like they were just all of a sudden just building up to where we are later on, where we're basically getting at, and it almost seems a little pointless in certain aspects. But it didn't bother me too much with some of the other ones that fill in some gaps of what you understand with some of the characters, like some of the backstories and stuff. And so I thought that was pretty cool, especially with certain things that we reveal on connections of one of the characters. I think one of my other issues that I had with it was that the movie is M. Night Shyamalan's first R-rated film since The Happening, and it seemed like he still didn't really feel like he took advantage of what we could show with a lot of the brutal killings, because there are a lot of scenes where the deaths are either off-screen or you see just basically somewhat of blood coming down, but not enough to really warrant it really much of an R rating. So honestly, I think that they could have really made the movie PG-13. They couldn't really miss nothing. So that was one of my other biggest things, was that for it being M. Night Shyamalan's going for the R, they don't really showcase a whole lot. It felt like more of a soft R rated, if anything, because there really wasn't anything in here other than like some F-bombs and stuff. It didn't really feel much like they really added much with the R rating. And then one of my other biggest issues, I will say too, is that there are certain dialogue parts, and this is one of my things I've kind of always had an issue with Shyamalan as a writer when it comes to dialogue in certain movies, is that there are certain conversations in the film that do seem a little too like they feel kind of out of place in certain parts. That was one of the issues I had with Old, because there are certain things where characters would say things that seem a little like they're not really human beings when they talk to each other. That's just my little minor things with that, because for the most part, the acting in this is still very great, and I still think that it is a very intenseful ride. But I would just wish that we could have had a better ending. I think that for the last few years alone, it seems like Shyamalan has struggled with doing twist endings. And now, just with endings in general, it just seems like he really finds struggles when he gets to like the last part. So I think one of these days, when he gets back into that level where he does a great one again, like Split, I think we'll really get into something really big with him in the future. But with that, I'm going to give Knock at the Cabin a compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter. So for those of you who have also seen Knock at the Cabin, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.